was like, I know that I have so much knowledge and what I've built in the clinic is so valuable. I feel like that would be really valuable for other therapists. My response has always been no, I'm not sharing anything. That's my intellectual property. That's my intellectual knowledge. I'm not sharing that. Like, that's what makes Speak About great. And I was really challenged by that in my prayer, my meditation time, because it was like, well, your values are that there's enough for everybody, that there's abundance. And why are you then choosing to be stingy with what you can help people with? And so I was like, what? It's creating a new reality for yourself in your imagination. It's going, what would it look like for me to change that mindset and go, there is enough for everybody. I can share this knowledge with everybody. And that's essentially where it came from. And, you know, like you have those thoughts, someone's going to steal my idea, someone's going to copy me. People have done that. They've already done it. People are doing that. It comes back to that belief that nobody can replace you. And everyone then brings something unique to the world. So say someone is trying to copy me. I hope that they then can bring their unique spin to that to them help where I'm not able to, you know, but it's just coming from that abundance mentality. There's enough people to help. There's enough children to help. There's enough money in the world. There's enough resources. Again, I didn't think too much about it. Like I didn't think I needed to create a personal brand. I was just like, right, I'll just set up an Instagram and talk to people. I'll just share like what I'm finding helpful. I'll just share what my team are doing. And so the online business is basically what I've been doing in Speak About clinics at that point, I think for 7 years or 6 years. So it was just then doing it on a scale of online and promoting it. I knew that had worked. I'd seen the transformation with my speeches in-house. I'd seen that already. So I knew that what I was teaching worked. It was then just making it accessible to everybody. And I was like, speeches are not getting this training. Like, I'll just do that. But it was literally born from a mentality shift.
We are child development obsessed, business besties and mums. And we're here to spill all our secrets.
We have a combined 30 years experience working with children, and each episode we will bring you up-to-date research and evidence-based strategies to set your children up to thrive.
I'm Lizzie Dawson, Australian exercise physiologist.
I'm Emily Mackey, Australian speech pathologist.
And this is the Move, Talk, Thrive podcast. So today I get the very exciting job to interview Emily and find out all about her background and what has got her to her successful position today. So I'm really excited to ask you some questions today, Em. Welcome to our podcast.
Thank you, Lizzie. I'm happy to be here. That's what you say, don't you, on all podcasts?
So today it's my job to fire some questions at you and to dig a little bit deeper. I'm pretty excited because you are someone that really inspires me. So I am excited to get down a little bit deeper, find out a little bit about your background and then, your journey that you've taken basically to get to where you are today. So I'll get started. Can you share a little bit about your childhood and upbringing with me? Were there any experiences or influences that you feel played a significant role in shaping you today?
That's a very big loaded question straight out of the gate. I guess like to start, so I grew up in Western Sydney and I grew up at the base of the Blue Mountains, which we found out last week that that's where you actually spent your first years when you finished school. So that's where I was living. We were both near each other. We both never even knew each other. It's crazy.
So crazy.
So I grew up at the base of the Blue Mountains. I'm the oldest child of 4. And so I was actually born in Orange, fun fact.
Oh,
and
wow.
I was born in Orange, and then my parents moved us just me and them, to Emu Heights or Penrith when I think I was about 1. And that's where we've been that's where they still are now. So growing up, my mum always says that I was go, go, go. I was always coming up with new activities, new games. I have a younger brother, Nathan, who's 18 months under me, and I was always the one that was creating and telling him what to do and creating the games and all that type of thing. So she said I was so busy. Like she said, she used to take me to the shopping center and she would sometimes walk out with things in the pram that I had just grabbed from all the shop shelves and just put in the pram because she was like, you're just so busy. I just couldn't even look after the two children, and I'd have to go back to the stores and say, I'm so sorry. Like I walked out with all this stuff. I wasn't stealing it. So I think I was very busy from an early age and always coming up with new ideas. I think that's what I was like. That's what I've been told I was like. I really enjoyed school. I've always loved learning, and I've loved learning new things. And I had a pretty good experience, I think, throughout school. Like I had primary school, I always had good friends, good teachers. I guess, like looking back, I feel like now as a speech therapist, I tell parents, like if children are sort of average, their skills are average or above average, they thrive or they're great or fine in whatever schooling system you put them in. It's when children are a little bit below average or struggle, that's where the schooling system really matters. So for me, I would have been in that. I wouldn't have said I was really, really bright, like I was in the average range. So I just did okay at school. Like I didn't have any issues.
It's the best range to be in, isn't it? Like you don't want to feel like if you're on either extreme, it's always going to be more difficult.
Yeah. And I think I probably found more specific areas that I liked in high school, which was more English. Like I realized as you go through harder things in high school, I realized I'm not very good at maths. And to this day, I'm still not good at maths. I just jumped off a meeting with with one of my charity partners, and they were telling me figures and doing Excel spreadsheets, and I was like, I can't do this. My brain is fried. So I really, we're opposites. So when you were saying you were doing accounting last week, I was like, oh, I could never do that. But to me, I always saw business as boring, business as numbers, and it was like commerce and really dry subjects. So I always stayed away from them in high school. I never was interested in them. I never even went anywhere near business until I had to, was when I often speak about. But I always was driven towards the humanitarian type subjects. So, and the body subjects. And then I sort of did chemistry and things like that to get into uni. But I was always drawn to helping people. And I think I've been thinking about it a lot lately, but as I was growing up, like I was exposed to hospitals. Like I was the oldest of 4 kids, and then my mum had 10 siblings. So we were always going to the hospital because someone was having a baby. I was always around children. I was always around health professionals. So I think I wonder if that's why I wanted to help people, because that's what I knew. Like I look back, I was never exposed to anyone in business. Even though my grandfather had his own business, he was then retired by the time I came along. I was never really exposed to, I don't know, like I didn't even know the role of marketing existed when I was in year 12.
Yeah.
You know what it's really crazy. I always knew like about doctors, nurses, physios, OTs. My mum had taken my sister to a speech therapist, so she was like, why don't you have a look at speech? But I guess that's where I was sort of always focused on and aimed at. And I was like, people would say, what do you want to do when you're older? I'd say, initially it was a nurse, because that was the job where you help people. I loved going into hospitals. It sounds crazy. Most people have really bad memories of hospitals, but my memories, every time I went to hospital, was someone was giving birth to a baby. So it was very nice. It was good news to go to a hospital. So I was like, I want to be a nurse. And then when I was, I think, maybe in year 10, my mum took me to see a chiropractor, and he was like, my wife is a nurse, don't be a nurse. And he like listed all the negative reasons why not to be a nurse. And he literally pivoted me from then thinking, okay, maybe I won't be a nurse. But pretty much my entire primary school, my entire high school, I was like, I'm going to be a nurse.
So at what point did you know you wanted to do speech?
That's a really funny question, because I didn't even know what speech therapy was, even when I was in speech therapy enrolled in my degree. So I think it's just a classic case of you just do what you're told to do. Like you're in school, you're in high school, and people are like telling you, this is your timetable, go to this class, go here. And And so then you're all of a sudden like you're in year 12 where you're sort of being micromanaged
Yeah.
and everyone's like, you don't really have a say, like show up at this time, leave at this time, complete this assignment at this time. Then you graduate and it's like you've got, oh, freedom, choose whatever you want to do with your life,
Yeah.
choose wherever course you want to go, choose whatever uni you want to go to, choose what campus you want to go to. And
Like,
so
wait, I don't know how to make decisions. No one ever let me make decisions.
exactly, it's actually ludicrous. So I'm like, why don't they have a subject in high school saying how to make decisions?
Yeah.
Oh, how do you do that? And I'm very conscious of that now. So we try to do that in our parenting. We've learned becoming parents how you sort of can help your children make choices and be confident with their choices. Because that's the thing then as well. When you then make choices, you then go, was that the wrong choice? And then you're afraid of doing the wrong choice and then you stew about it. So it's actually a skill I've learned since reading parenting books in how to know how to make a choice, and
Yeah.
how to be okay with that choice, even if it's a mistake or the wrong choice and you look back and think I should have chosen the other thing. It's then how do you then have resilience to respond to that? So
Yeah.
we're going through that now in our parenting. I've only learned it in becoming a parent, but essentially I think what I did was in high school I was like, I'm just going to list all the health subjects. I'm going to list physio, speech, OT in order of UAI, so in order of ATAR, and then I'm just going to try my best, and whatever mark I get in high school, that will be the course that I will do.
Yeah,
that was literally how I got into speech pathology.
Yeah.
And I mean, I do have a strong faith, so I was just like, what will be, and I will just do my best, and then what is meant to be will happen.
Yeah.
And that's sort of literally what I did. And I think like I wasn't meant to be a physio. I'm not super strong, like, you know, with all those exercises and things. And I was really good at English. So that sort of makes sense with speech pathology. I was interested in radiography at one point, you know, where you do the ultrasounds. And I think I probably would have loved that. But again, I sort of left it down to, well, if I get those marks, I'll go to that course. If I don't get that marks, I'm meant to do something else.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
And you mentioned faith. Was there a strong presence of that and spirituality in your upbringing? Is that where your faith comes from? Because that's something that has always, you know, resonated with me and really helped me like see you have faith and back yourself in your business journey, because we, you know, as we've said, we've been friends for 10 years and been on this journey, and that's something that I really see in you. So what have you had a role model, or what's your experience been with faith? Where's that come from?
Yeah, absolutely. That's been a pivotal point of my life, and it still is to this day, and particularly with my upbringing. So I think family plays a big part of that, and I think the big thing that faith does, so there's lots of different things out there, but it gives you as a child and a young person, and then as a teenager and as an adult, it gives you a set of values, and a set of, I think those values help you form your identity and help you form to know who you are. And obviously, like, you're still discovering it, but when you have values, you have a bit of a compass, and it's sort of, that's a lens of which you can sort of use to learn and grow in the world. Whereas I think if you have no compass, it can feel like a little bit like you're lost. So I think that's where spirituality has played a very big part for me, in shaping, like, you know, it's not dictating to you what it is, but it's just those core values. And sort of, as I've had this my business speak about, we do a lot of personal development in the business, and we've done a lot of personal, like, you know, books and things like that. And so people teach with personal development that you have sort of underlying fundamental set of values. Everyone does, whether they know it or not. And sometimes those values are instilled into you. Sometimes you choose them, you know, like, it's, people have them. And so it's sort of like everyone's right or wrong. And I feel like when you have a spirituality in your family, that's instilled to you from a very young age. And so that gives you a sense of identity and a sense of confidence and a sense of knowing your place in the world and having a sense of belonging, which is essentially what every child needs to have and to develop that self-esteem and sort of, like you said, to be able to back themselves
Yeah.
with that.
Yeah. Well, it's in the hierarchy of needs of motivation, isn't it?
Yeah.
Social belonging. That's one of the
Yeah.
one of
Yeah.
the
And I'd still say, I mean, most gurus out there say that spirituality is an important component of every person's life. Like, you know,
oh,
there's
sure.
different areas that we need to focus on to have a well-rounded holistic life. And
Yeah.
spirituality is a very huge component of that. And
Yeah.
so for me, that's how I bring myself into, you know, accessing peace or accessing just you know, like just winding down a little bit and sort of getting out of yourself a little bit, realizing that there's a presence bigger than yourself, and then realizing that, you know, there's principles that are guiding you, or guiding what's happening around you, and it sort of helps you to not try and take all control back, because control is a big thing. Control is what makes us like stress when we feel like we're in charge of everything and we have to look after everything, which that is like a big weight on your shoulders. So when you can sort of release that control, it brings you back to being grounded and peaceful, and sort of like having those habits of meditating, or for me, I pray each day, or, you know, that sort of thing, read different types of books. That just really helps, I think, have a holistic, well-balanced life.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So if we go back to, so you got into speech out of kind of luck by
total fluke.
Yeah.
I was attending my lectures going, I still have never seen a speech session. I don't even know what speech pathology is, but
yeah. So walk me through how you went from that to getting into your own business.
Well, so I think well, to be honest, I then in uni, I really did struggle through uni.
Yep.
So to put it into context, right? So I got one of the top ATARs or UAIs in my school.
Yeah.
And then when I went into my speech course, I was at the bottom of
right.
my ATARs. So like I was at University of Sydney and I got an ATAR of 92. And I was the lowest. So everyone above me is in like the top 8% of Australia, like, you know. And so it's sort of that transition as well, where you've been like the top academically for like since you're 7, and then you go in and you realize I'm actually not that smart. There's people here who have got 95, 96, 97, 98 in the ATAR, which is insane. And then I really struggled with the way that uni was presented. It was all theory. And because I had no practical knowledge of what speech pathology was, I just really struggled to digest this theory, to remember it, to learn it, to retain it, because I was like, I don't actually know why I'm learning this. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know. I don't know. And I think then that was also a lack of vision in knowing why I was doing speech pathology. But I really struggled. And so through uni, I went to getting like basically 50s. And I was like, if again, it was sort of that spirituality, that faith component came in. I was like, this is the course I'm meant to be in. If this is what I'm supposed to be doing, I will pass. And if I'm not, then I will transfer, because I won't get the marks. And literally my exams were coming back 51. Wow. And I was like, hey, this is why I know what I'm supposed to be doing, because I passed by 1%. And then like all of my friends were like getting like 90, and I was like, how did you do that? I studied so much. And so it was just this total flip for me. And I just remember I had a certain moment, I can't even remember if it was first or second year, and like I didn't even have a laptop, so, you know, I had to do my assignments on the family computer. So it's so different. I think I only got my laptop in 4th year. So we were writing all notes at that time. We had all paper and all that sort of stuff. So I remember just sitting in front of the family computer in my family's toy room, and I was just crying, because I was like, this question that I have to answer in an essay, I don't even know what I'm writing. I don't even know what I'm doing. Like, I just have no idea what I'm doing. But I think I didn't understand myself personally. I didn't understand the world. I didn't understand anything really. So I just did what happened in school. You just kind of pick yourself up and you just keep moving forward, doing what you're told, because you're in university. So they're telling you, complete this assignment, hand this in, do this. And I was like, okay, right. So Essentially, I graduated uni feeling pretty fraudy, to be honest. Like I
Yeah.
honestly felt like I just fluked my way through uni. I didn't I only found a love for speech pathology. I wouldn't even say a love for speech pathology, but a love for working with my children when I did my placements. And I
Yeah.
felt like I actually impacted them. But that was only in for a very brief time in third year and then a
Yeah.
lot of fourth year. And so again, I don't think I questioned too much. Looking back, I think I didn't question, I just sort of did. I think
Yeah.
that saved me in some regards because I think if I questioned, I would have gone, I don't want to do this, I'm not happy, I could have changed and it could have been very different. But I then finished uni and I ended up getting a local job with a local speech pathology practice. And it was really nice because my best friend from uni was employed at that job as well. And so I just did exactly what I did in uni. I just coattailed off her. I just coattailed off my smart friends because I was just like, I don't really know what I'm doing. I don't know what's happening. But it was only really when I finished uni that I felt like I started to find my life.
Yeah.
Because in uni, it was, I was on the old course, which meant that I was at uni 4 to 5 days a week. I know uni is very different for students now. Like they go 1 to 2 times a week and then
Yeah.
they work. Like even with our AHAs here, they can do work like 3 days a week. I'm like, how is that possible? But
Mm.
I was at uni 4 to 5 days a week. I would then work at Maya. I had a part-time job through there. So I'd work at Maya Thursday nights. Like I'd get off the train, go straight to the Westfields, work from like 5 till 9. I would then work all day Saturday. I would have Sunday, 1 day off a week. I did
Yeah.
that for 4 years straight, where I would then be trying to like cram in uni assignments on the Sunday and then cram in family time. And then like every night I'd be socializing. So you kind of finish uni and I was traveling like an hour and a half every day to get to uni. So you
Oh,
finish
wow.
uni and you go, right, I now only have to drive 5 minutes to the same job every day. That's all I need to do. I need to focus on one job and then I get to come home. So I felt like my life really started when I
Yeah.
finished uni.
Yeah.
And the first thing I did when I finished uni was I did a round the world trip for 7 weeks.
Fabulous.
Used every single cent that I had in my bank account that I had saved for the last 4 years, which wasn't a lot of money. And I actually still think when I first traveled that time, I still had to go to like a computer cafe, like if I
Yeah.
wanted to get on and send an email. And I didn't have a phone. I was still using paper maps, like when I was traveling. And I remember like, I'm pretty sure I came home and my parents were like, where have you been? We haven't heard from you for like 2 months. And I was like, I sent one email, but that was the reality back then. You just didn't have like FaceTime or whatever. But
Oh,
I think, oh wow, like I actually did that.
that's amazing, doesn't it?
Yeah, it was so much fun. I feel like that's when I started to think, oh, there's a bigger world out here. There's
Mm.
bigger things to see, like there's things to learn and yeah, it's just a whole different thing because I don't have to be at uni every day. I don't have assignments. I can actually do stuff with my time. So,
Mm.
that's when I started exercising because before that, like, well, now I was like, I finish work at 4:30, 5 o'clock. I have all this time. So I started exercising. I started doing different types of hobbies. I started traveling more. So pretty much every 6 months, I then traveled. So
Yeah.
I did my big world trip and then that year I did like America, Thailand. It worked with my workplace because they closed every 6 months. Like in July, we had 2 weeks off. Then we closed for 2 to 3 weeks over Christmas. And so every time I just traveled. I
Yeah.
think I did that for the first 3 to 4 years of my career. I
Yeah.
traveled like I backpacked in Europe, all that sort of thing.
So where were you working at this point?
So I was working in a private practice just 5 minutes from home.
Yeah.
And
With kids?
yes, always with
Yeah.
pediatrics there. I mean, most people then have heard my story. I wasn't exactly happy there, but I was really grateful to be there and I was learning a lot. So it was a good job.
Yeah.
I finished up that job after 2 years and I went into a community health setting
Hmm.
slash hospital mixed caseload. So that was then where I worked with babies up on the ward who were born on the same day. Then I would be doing swallowing assessments with 100-year-olds. Then I would be doing outpatient speech therapy with a 3-year-old. And it was very mixed. So it was multi disciplinary. So I was working with OTs, dietitians, psychs. There was community health, loads of meetings every day. You're just in meetings.
Yeah,
And so I
right.
went from a very intense private practice to a very laid back kind of working environment. And I remember that this was quite pivotal for me because I, for the first time, like even in my private practice, I was dictated to a lot. And it was like, these are your KPIs, these are your numbers, do. And you don't really have a lot of time to think for yourself.
Yeah.
When I went into community health, that was the first time ever that I experienced that I can think for myself and I might be able to be a therapist a different way.
Yeah.
And I might be able to do things differently, or I might be able to live my life. Like at that time, I'd moved out, I'd gotten a car, I'd moved in with a couple of friends. It sort of just happened that way. But I remember thinking when I started my job at community health, oh my gosh, I could actually like teach this with a different way. And I can do this a different way. And I would trial things with kids and I would be like, oh my gosh, that actually worked. So I just had a total time there of self-discovery. I had my foundational years at a private practice. And then I sort of had those 3 years there going, wow, like just trial and error. I didn't have someone over me like going, that's wrong, that's right. Like I could just sort of do it as I felt like a bit more child-led. I had a wonderful boss there, wonderful colleagues. I loved that team and I loved working there. And I honestly think, again, I put this down to faith, is that when I went for that position, there was 2 positions available. One was a permanent full-time position and at the community health, and one was a 12-month position full-time. So I was offered the permanent 12-month position. And I look back and everyone at the time was like, why did you get that? Like you had way more experience than the other girl. Like, why did you get that position? I look back now and I know without a doubt that if I had been offered that permanent full-time position, I probably would still be there.
Yeah.
And I just put that down to that was because I was not supposed to be there. And it's just one of those moments and those things where you look back on.
Yeah.
But essentially, I ended up staying there for 3 years because the girl was just kept extending her maternity leave. And I wasn't looking for another job. Like I loved my rhythm there, but they essentially said like, she's coming back. We've only got 3 days of work for you. So I was forced to go out elsewhere. And I applied like pretty much every speech pathology job I've gone for, I've got. But I sort of was looking at different jobs and then I sort of declined a few jobs because I was like, they're too far. Oh, I'm not interested in that specialty. And I finally landed with a lady. And in the interview, again, this is where I believe it's not a coincidence, but in the interview, she said to me, why are you going for this position? You have all the experience to open your own business. What are you doing here? And I said to her, no, I don't feel confident in that. And she was like, look, I've never done this before. I'm never going to probably do this again. But if you come to work with me, I will then train you up in business and show you how to open your own business. And she's like, I'm shooting myself in the foot because I'm offering you a position and then I'm willing to train you up. And I was like, okay. So basically the whole interview was her coaching me and encouraging me to start a business. That was the interview. And I came out of it and I was just like, I was a bit of a mess, to be honest, because I was just like, that's not what I was expecting.
Yeah.
And I was just like having so much self-doubt. I was like, I can't open a business. I don't know enough. I don't know. I just don't know. I just don't know anything about business. But
how do you overcome that? Because that's something that as business owners, we have so frequently, because we're always kind of extending and growing. So, this is one, probably a foundational moment where you had to overcome that and you would have refined it over time. But what did you do in that moment?
I called my mom.
Yeah.
I called my mom and I was like, this is what's happened. What do you think? And she was like, I think you should go for it. I think you should go with her, take the job and see what she does and see how you find it. And then go from there. And I think it comes back to a bit of resilience as well. Self-talk. And again, having that fundamental identity and sort of, I was just like, okay, all right, calm down. Like, again, let's just have have that sort of that guidance and connect. If this is meant to happen, this will be. I guess now I'm saying that's a lot of how I live my life.
Yeah.
If this is like with that faith, I'm like, if that's what's supposed to happen, that will be. I will trust the process. I will trust that something's bigger than myself, and like, it will sort of work out a bit.
Yeah.
I think I've always been like, I think most people say that's quite risky, but
Yeah.
I've always been a risk taker like that, if that makes sense. But I think as well now I know that I don't tend to think things through too
Yeah.
far ahead. And
Yeah.
I have, at first I thought that was a weakness because a lot of people are like, haven't you thought about this and this and this and this detail? But I realize now that that's probably a strength, because if I had done that, I probably wouldn't have started anything, because you get so bogged down in all the things you think this is too much. I can't do this. Whereas I never sort of thought too far ahead. And I would just be like, I'm just going to do the next thing that's in front of me, which is, I don't know, get an ABN or get a business name, and I would just do that, and I wouldn't think too much about it. I've learned I probably do need to think a little bit more about things before I just jump, but that's each person's perspective.
I know. I mean,
you've
done pretty well. So I think what's working for you, right?
Yeah. I think maybe it changes as you get older.
Yeah, that's right. Well,
and you have more responsibility, I think.
Yeah. Sure.
At that stage, I didn't really have much to lose if it failed. And that's what I also thought. I always thought, well, if something fails, I can always go back. I'm highly employable. I've gotten an offer for every single job I've been for. I did continue to carry that mindset probably about the first 5 years to speak about, until I realized that was an unhealthy mindset to have, because I wasn't believing in myself and believing and giving everything, because I was like, oh, I'll always just go back to a job.
But I think it's just a risk assessment, isn't it? Like when we renovated our house, I'm like, well, if I don't have the cash, I can always go back and see clients, and we've spoken about that before. There's, and I think that's one of the quality things about being in health. There's always work. And that was one of the things my mum always said to me, like, where are you always going to be able to get a job?
It's kind of like your fallback.
It's just a risk assessment, I think. So you take risks, but that's there. You've got like that strong foundation.
Yeah, I think that was it was ingrained to me. You just go to uni, you get a degree, and then you can do what you want with your life, because you've got a degree. You've always got something to fall back on, a piece of paper to fall back on, essentially, or a qualification.
Yeah. And so you took this job with this lady. Are you still in contact with her?
No. So it's an interesting story. This lady then didn't deliver anything that she had promised. So I actually gave my resignation in after 3 weeks. But I then built her business for her. I said to her, I resigned after 3 weeks, but I said I will stay for 6 months if you let me, because I was a contractor. So I was like, if you let me in my own time build my own business.
Yeah, right.
And so again, I think like my ability to just get thrown into the deep end and just land with that, and my resilience carried me through that job, because that job was very it got my foot back into the private practice kind of well. But like my first client, when I arrived on the day to start the job, was sitting in the waiting area. She didn't have like a good filing system, no notes written up, nothing. And she was like, just go and see them. And I was like, but what do I do? And she was like, you figure it out. And I was just completely thrown into the deep end. And I just was like in the therapy session, literally assessing the child on a whim. Like I literally just walked in. You always think your first day you have orientation and everything.
Of course.
So I had that with pretty much both my private practice jobs. Like I was just completely thrown in the deep end. But that's the thing. You either make the most of those opportunities and you just grow, you lean on your feet, you just run with it. And of course it's a negative situation, but you just run with it. And that's essentially what business and life is all the time, isn't it? You just get thrown these things and you just go, okay, how do I deal with this? So by that time I was quite a mature clinician, but I then essentially like built that business for her, systemized, structured it, everything, built up the caseload for 2 days, because I was still working 3 days at the community health center for 2 days while I started my own business on the side for 6 months. So I was actually doing 3 jobs at one time, building her business, doing the basics of mine, and then working at community health for a period of about 12 months, I'd say. And like then I sort of I finished up working with her. And then I just did 1 day a week for Speak About. And even that, the location, the way I got the location for that, for Speak About start is again just total fluke.
Yeah.
I had, and even like, yeah, so I had a local preschool, I guess a government agency call me saying, oh, we heard you were opening your own business. We've got a room for you. Do you want that? And
Wow.
this was before I'd even told people. This was before I had even thought about it myself. Like I just had all these external things just encouraging me to start a business. And then it just happened so easily. So they gave me a room, they gave me all the furniture. It was actually 3 rooms. It was 2 consulting rooms and a big reception. They gave me a reception desk. It was attached to a preschool. They said they would charge me like very minimal rent, but they never collected on the rent.
Oh,
So
wow.
I actually had, I always put the money aside to pay them rent, but then I would be like, can I pay you rent? Can I pay you rent? Can I pay you rent? And they were like, yeah, 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 yeah. And then I was like, can I have the bank details? And they would never give them to me. So
What year was it?
this was 2014. So I opened April 2014. And so I had clients from the first day that I opened, and it was just word of mouth because I opened in the Hawkesbury, which is where I'd been working for the last 3 years. So I was known in the area. I knew that there was waiting lists and there wasn't many private practices. There was no private practices in the area. There was a couple of sole traders. That was it.
Right.
And I knew that because in the community sector, I kept sending people away, going, go and access therapy privately, and then come back saying, well, you have nowhere to go. And that's actually why I was then really happy to open my own business, because I felt my hands were tied clinically. And then also I was like, I want to help people. That's why I became a speechy. So I actually opened my business with no intention of understanding business, with not knowing what business was, with no interest in business at all. I was just like, I'm here to help people. I'm just a speechy.
Yeah.
And I'll just sort of, again, just sort of go with the motions. What I think, like I Googled how to start a business. I was like, right, ABN, name, make sure no one's got that name, set up the space. I knew all the clinical stuff. And the benefits of being in private practice before was I knew how to run a speechy clinic. Like I had witnessed my bosses doing that. So I sort of just did what I knew.
Yeah.
And then started, and pretty much within, so I was like 1 day, then I went to 2 days. So then I was doing 3 jobs. Then I went down to 2 jobs, which was this and community health. And then within 6 months, I was like, I think I can go into this full time, because I was just like, I can't cope with all these clients. This is too much. This is too much. So then, I resigned.
When did you get Bree was your first clinician?
Yeah, I got admin before I had Bree. I had an admin, but I think that was a good 12 months before. But I mean, anyone who's opening their own business, it sounds great, but it's a hard slog to get it built up. Like I was just like, you're doing all the business things, which is like at that time where it's very basic, like the diary, the payments, the invoices. I didn't have no website, no marketing, nothing like that. But then you're also doing all of your clinical work as well. Phone calls, messaging, confirmations, paperwork, policies, those things to start the basics. I was seeing between 17 to 20 clients, half an hour clients a day, because I was like, I need to generate income to then be able to hire someone to help me. And so that was 3 to 4 to 5 days a week. And there was periods in there where I would have 15 to 20 clients a day, every day for 5 days a week. But that's what I mean. It's a hard slog. You've got to get it off the ground, and you're the only person who's going to do it. And if you believe in yourself and your business as much as you do, you will do it, but it's not easy. It's not a walk in the park. But now you're saying, oh, like it's successful. I'm like, well, that's why, because it's a lot of hard work behind it.
Yeah. And what would you say, what would you attribute to, your growth mindset throughout that? What, like, was there daily habits or was it just get in and get it done? Don't think about anything else.
I think it's like actioning things really quickly. Like I said, I don't think about things too much. I don't think too far ahead. I'm just like, this needs to be done. Do it. Do it now. Like, I think definitely actioning things ASAP super quickly. And then mentoring.
Ever bit you in the bum? Has that
all the time.
Yeah.
I've made very impulsive snap decisions. And I've learned, okay, certain things can't be done that way. So like with any of the finances, with wages, with anything that's detailed, like policies, you can't rush those things. You have to be settled and looking at those things. So there's different areas where that's good and where that's not good. And that comes back to personal development, having self-awareness, understanding what your strengths are, understanding you can still work in things that aren't your strengths, but knowing that this might be a bit of a task that will drain me, or this will be a task that's going to require more concentration from me. So I need to set aside time to do it and make sure I've got the brain space for it. But when you run your own business, or not even business, when you do anything, you can't just be in life, well, I'm not going to do that because that's not my strength. Like you have to do everything. You know, it's whether you have a car. Just because you don't like cars doesn't mean you don't service your car. You know what I mean? So just because things aren't our strength doesn't mean we don't do them, doesn't mean we can't improve and we can't work on those things. But you've just got to know that about yourself and put measures in place so that you can bring your best when you have to do those things or those tasks, which means giving yourself time, giving yourself a reward after, giving yourself, making sure that it's at a time of day that's good for you. Like I always do the hard things for me at the beginning of the day because I'm a morning person. Don't do anything in the afternoon that requires numbers or figures or anything because I will just crash and lose motivation.
And so how many speeches have you got now?
So now we have, again, numbers. We have 6, we've got a team of about 16.
Amazing.
16. So we have a clinic, we built a purpose-built clinic in Hobart, or in the Hawkesbury, which was a big accomplishment in 2019, right before I had my first daughter, Evie, 2020. So we've got 6, we'll have next year, 2024, we'll have 6 speech years, and we've got allied health assistants, and then we've got 2 admin as well, and then we've got our clinic up at Tuggerah, which has 3 clinicians. It's only got 3 rooms, so we're full to capacity in both of our clinics. But there's such a need for speech therapy. It's definitely not going away anytime soon.
Goodness, no way.
So, but it's just managing. Like for me, I get a lot of questions about how do you manage being a mum, running a business. So running the Speak About, running my online business, creating products, having a life. How do you do that? And I honestly think it comes down to discipline. It comes down to habits, like boundaries, and knowing what your strengths are, good delegation. And being
faith.
Prepared to learn. And faith, yes, faith is a big component.
I think that really has been, like, from the external watching you, like, I just think that is the core of your success, because I feel like from the outside it looks really easy. I feel like you have just flowed through, and essentially you have, because
I just flicked everything through.
But you're saying that you know, it hasn't been super calculated and planned and mapped out. It's responding quite quickly to opportunities. And to me, that is going with flow. Like you are kind of flowing through, and because you're so grounded in your identity and who you are, and you're quite confident in that, and you've got that faith component there, that's such a strong foundation for success. So, from my perspective, it looks really easy. I'm like, it's almost easy for him.
No, it's not. But I am told that, like, so I don't feel like I come across chilled, but I am told repeatedly, like in different contexts, I come across quite chilled. Like as a mum, people say to me, oh my gosh, you're so chilled as a mum. And I'm like, I don't feel like I am. At work, they're like, you're so chilled. I'm like, I don't feel like I am. So I think, that's what people would say. They have been saying to me. But I honestly think I just don't think I just don't, like, I think what stresses me out is I think too much, too detailed and too far ahead. I just don't do that. Not for a fear. It's just not in my personality. I'm more of an optimistic person. So I think about opportunities. I think about the good things. I'm not like a naturally pessimistic person. So I'm not a person that goes, what are the 3 bad things that could happen from this?
Yeah.
My brain is just not wired to think that way.
Yeah, it's amazing. So good.
Yeah.
And so how did the online business come into play? Because that's a huge focus or like a huge part of your
Yeah.
time. How does that come? That
Well, so I had Evie 2020, so she's COVID. We're all in lockdown.
yeah.
I had at this time kind of removed myself from Speak About because I had to. Like I was having a baby. I was like, you can't be calling me in labor. Like I want to help you, but I can't. I
Mm,
just don't know I just don't know what the next chapter of my life is going to look like. So
yeah.
I had set up managers and sort of systems in the business as best I could. Like my team would probably say, oh, it was really hard at that time. But
Yeah.
I set up it as best as I could under the circumstances. And so I didn't have loads of pressure from Speak About, which
Yeah.
was amazing. Credit to
Yeah.
my team, amazing team. And so I was at home because it's lockdown.
Yeah.
And again, it's true. It's all through faith. I was just
Yeah.
literally sitting there, and I was doing like a few different courses, online courses that people were running in America, and I was always wanting to learn. So I had no intention of actioning or implementing or starting another business. Like I was just like, I'm just happy to learn and listen, and how can I make use of this time? Like when I had Evie sleeping, which was a lot. You
Yes.
kind of I mean, that's another transition itself. You go from being a busy business owner doing multiple things to being at home with a baby. And you're just like, right, what am I going to do with myself now? Like I can cook and clean, but as a newborn, they're quite easy.
Yeah.
So, or she was quite easy. So I was
I feel
doing
like
these
people
online
don't
things.
know that. People don't expect that.
Yeah, it's a big transition, I think. And I mean, it's also a mental transition because you get reduced. Like my mom always says, you get reduced to a dummy because you're like you just then think about the simple things in life and you're like, how do I get out to the shops? How do I get in the car? Like, how do I change a nappy? And you just think you've gone from this like running a business
Yeah.
with, doing all these high end things, and you go down to thinking, how do I change a nappy? Anyway,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's fine. Like it is what it is, but
Yeah.
it's funny to talk about. But I was, yeah, just sort of sitting in my quiet time and in my space, and I was like, I know that I have so much knowledge, and what I've built in the clinic is so valuable. I feel like that would be really valuable for other therapists.
Yeah.
And my immediate response was, and my response has always been, no, I'm not sharing anything. That's my intellectual property. That's my intellectual knowledge. I'm not sharing that. Like that's what makes Speak About great. And I was really challenged by that in my prayer, my meditation time, because it was like, well, your values are that there's enough for everybody, that there's abundance, and why are you then choosing to be stingy with what you can help people with? And so I guess it's being open to having those sorts of changes in your mindset and changes in your life. And so I was like, what? It's creating a new reality for yourself in your imagination. It's going, what would it look like for me to change that mindset and go, there is enough for everybody. I can share this knowledge with everybody. And that's essentially where it came from. I was like, I want to have a place. There's enough for everybody. And, like you have those thoughts, someone's going to steal my idea. Someone's going to copy me. People have done that. They've already done it. People are doing that. And it's like, well, nobody comes back to that belief that nobody can replace you. And everyone then brings something unique to the world. So say someone is trying to copy me. I hope that they then can bring their unique spin to that, to them help where I'm not able to.
Yeah.
And then I hope that we can work together in collaboration, but it's just coming from that abundance mentality. There's enough people to help. There's enough children to help. There's enough money in the world. There's enough resources. There's enough. And there's like, because you always kind of think, well, if I'll start that, there's already 3 programs of that. I mean, with mine, there was no preschool language program like that in Australia. So I was like, this is what I can do. But if you have that mentality, you never do anything. But it's all about who can you help, who can you serve.
Yeah.
And that's sort of literally what I did. And so, again, I didn't think too much about it. Like, I didn't think I needed to create a personal brand. I was just like, right, I'll just set up an Instagram and talk to people.
Yeah.
I'll just share like what I'm finding helpful. I'll just share what my team are doing. And so the online business is basically what I've been doing in the Speak About clinics at that point, I think for 7 years or 6 years. So it was just then doing it on a scale of online and promoting it. I knew that had worked. I'd seen the transformation with my speeches in-house. I'd seen that already. So I knew that what I was teaching worked. It was then just making it accessible to everybody. And I was like, speeches are not getting this training. Like, I'll just do that. But it was literally born from a mentality shift.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that is yeah, I think it's amazing. It's such an empowered way to be.
Yeah. I don't know. Again, I'm just like, this is just what has happened. It's just the journey. But
And you know what it is? It's authentic. You're authentic. And I think that's why it resonates with people because it's natural, it's not calculated, it's not strategized. It's just
yeah.
like you're showing up authentically.
Yeah, I hope so. I try, but that's a big thing. Like you saying that, that's a big thing that I teach my speeches, and like I feel like that comes through uni, no matter what course you're in. It's like be a professional, be this person at work, and then be a different person outside, or
Yeah.
be one person at home and then be another person out in public. And
Yeah.
I'm like, that's too draining. Just be
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
said it to my therapist. I'm like, this is the way that I talk to parents. I talk to them as who I am. I don't put on a
Yeah.
different persona because
Yeah.
that's just too much work.
So you've now got the online business, you've got Speak About, you've got your lovely husband who works in your business and two beautiful girls. What does your week look like? What is your flow during the week? How do you manage?
Yeah. Yeah. So my I think the biggest thing that people think is I work all the time. And I
Yeah.
feel like I don't.
Yeah.
I am working, but I'm working only on things that really I can do. And
Yeah.
I'm working I have two full-time VAs that work for me from the Philippines. So they are working full-time for me and I delegate to them. So
Yeah.
like I have 3 to 4 days of mum days mixed with
Yeah.
work days. So it's really important to me. A value for me is that I'm there for my kids and that I'm a present mum.
Yeah.
And I know after working with children for so many years and then working in preschools that's important for us and our family. So
Yeah.
my kids aren't in daycare, and that again shocks people. But
Yeah.
I do have a
They
nanny
are
that
not in childcare.
no, they're not in childcare.
Yeah.
Because that's just there's so many layers in that. But after working in childcares, they are amazing. But I'm like, if we have a choice not to send our children, then that would be the choice that we choose. But because of that, I'm still aware that they need the social, they need the emotional development, they need the physical development, all those things that childcare can provide them. So I like to do those things with them.
Yeah.
And I do have home help. So I have a nanny that comes in, I have a cleaner that comes. And I've tried to systemize a lot of our like meal prepping. I have a Thermomix that does stuff in half the time. So
Yeah.
a week sort of looks like we have activities on one day. So the girls do dancing, swimming. I will then work during nap times. So Isabel sleeps for an hour to an hour and a half at the moment. So I do just do a little bit of focused work in those times.
Yeah.
In the day, and I'm just very clear on my boundaries. Like if I'm working like, and we have a nice little routine. I'll set Evie up with an activity in our toy room to do during that time. But like I find the struggling, so I try to do two things at once. If I'm trying to send an email and she needs my attention, it's just when that gets bad.
Oh, yeah.
Or if she's trying to do something and I'm like, oh, I need to work, it just gets bad. So I'm just very clear. I have learned this, the last couple of years. I'm just very clear on my boundaries.
Yeah.
Tuesdays I come into work and I'm with my team and I have my nanny at home with my daughters. And then Wednesdays we sort of do, again, another mum day. Like I take them to the library. They have a social sort of play group time. And then we then just are at home. Like we just do activities at home, cooking, that type of thing. Thursdays, at the moment, Isabel's only just 18 months. So it was really only realistic to come back to it one day at that time. But now she's getting older, I'm thinking I will do Thursdays as well.
Yeah.
But normally just work in nap times, and then Fridays it's nap times as well. But every day, I think for stay-at-home mums full-time, I'm like, you can be out doing something every single day. You can be so busy as a mum doing stuff with your kids. But yeah, we've got lots of different like swimming play groups, dancing, social play dates, that type of thing. Evie does do some structured activities, like like she has gone into preschool for one day and things like that. Like she just does some one-off days like that. But I mean, I just think it's so short a period of time in a child's life.
Oh, absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, I sort of like to try to practice what I preach. So I am doing the things with my children that are beneficial, language, all the things that I've been telling parents for the last 10 years being a speech therapist. I try to do that with my children. I understand things are busy and life is busy, but I think the key has been looking at what's important to me, what's important to us, and then delegating things out that are not as important, or we'd rather pay for a cleaner to come in because then it's spending either time working or spending time with the kids rather than taking that time. So it's just having that flexibility, I think, and knowing every day changes or it can change, and not going like, this is our routine, we're not able to break from this routine. I think that's just life in general, really.
Yeah.
But I do, like I said, I have VAs that work for me full time. So they're always executing and implementing while I am just delegating and directing and leading and then giving feedback and going, okay, let's do this.
So one last question. I would like to know what you feel has been the biggest impact to your success. What can you attribute your success to, and what would you pass on to our listeners as a piece of advice to follow their journey to success?
Without a doubt, it would be continual growth and education in the form of mentoring or getting a mentor. So if I look back at my journey, I had a really good set of speechy mentors when I started. I then had a good workplace mentor. I then had really good business mentors, and that's where me and Liz met in a business coaching group. And then I've continued to have good business mentors and good clinical mentors. And so without a doubt, that's what you need. You need programs and structure and people who have been there and done it to guide you. They bring a certain degree of wisdom because they've been there. They're sort of able to help you analyze your situations and go, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? They're a little bit more ahead of you in the journey. So I think that can look like anybody, but it's someone that you look up to, or that you go, I really admire the way that they live their life. I admire what they have. I admire what they've created. I want that, or that's what I want my life to look like. And I think that's sort of how you know if a mentor is right for you. And I say mentor, so mentor / coach / supervisor, they're all a bit different. Like our governing body, Speech Pathology Australia, has a position statement on what a coach is. Coach is personal development, mentor and supervisor are more clinical sides. Like, so you need a well-rounded approach to mentoring / coaching. And I think in that mentoring coaching, you need to be coached on your professional development and your personal development. So we've been speaking a lot about personal development, but that has literally been the crux of all of my successes, is I've developed personally, and that's then propelled me professionally. And we talk about that all the time. I'm sure we'll be talking about it on the podcast more because we're just obsessed with it, but for good reason. It's the key to everything. But you can't live your life being like, I'm going to be successful in my career, but then not great in my personal life. It doesn't go.
Yeah.
It will lead to failure or
downfall. You've got to conquer yourself first.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. You've got to be greater on the inside than anything you bring about on the outside.
Yeah.
So I said that when I got my award for Speechy of the Year. I was like, this for me, this award is a representation of how much I've grown personally, because then it's manifested itself as an external award. Because I wouldn't have achieved this award if I wasn't working, if I hadn't achieved a certain personal growth. I feel.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing your journey. I know you have inspired me, and so I know you will inspire so many other people. So thank you so much for generously sharing your story.
No worries. Stay tuned for the next episode.